I am Benita Blackburn, Assistant Professor of Fiction at Fresno State, for those of you that don't know me or outside the program family. Welcome to all of you. And this is a great turnout. I'm really glad that you guys are here to support our students, our candidates, our future writers, our scribes of the world. And also, well, I'll just go. I feel as though Catalina and I grew up in the program together. Both of us began our respective work as professor and student nearly at the same time. And it has been a strange experience for all of the reasons, seen and unseen, in ways that I don't think any of us have a name for. Still, there has been room for adventure and scholarship. And I tend to have wild ideas now and again for projects, community events, and whatnot. And whenever I needed assistance, Catalina was ready and reliable. I will miss her, and certainly I will miss her work. So she writes about feminine madness, my favorite genre. And her thesis is about motherhood and the relationship women have to their bodies in a hostile world. The violence is subtle, poetic, ethereal, and always devastating. The healing happens close to the ground, in the dirt and roots, literal and metaphorical. I encourage my students to write about the sacred things that trouble their minds and hearts. Always with the warning that this could lead to trouble. Trouble is where the story is, the center of jeopardy. Catalina is comfortable with jeopardy and operates in communion with dangerous ideas in the spiritual space they inhabit. We don't have a name for these places. We are still learning the syntax of this world, measuring syllables of pain and pleasure, family and enemies, and how often they rhyme with one another. Reading Catalina's work is quite a scholarly adventure into the dark and fascinating psychology of girlhood. Though I will miss her steadying presence in the program, I will continue to expect great things from her as an artist, as a conduit of something ancient, mystical, and wise. I introduce to you all Catalina Vasquez Mata.
Thank you, Benita. Thank you, everyone. I have the chat open so I can see everybody's comments, and thank you so much. I want to breathe and take my time. Okay. I try to avoid the emotional, so Benita, how dare you? Make me emotional. So I had written my acknowledgements trying to be as stoic and businesslike as possible, and still failed somewhat. I always wanted to be a part of this program, specifically at Fresno State, ever since I was a little girl. And family would tell me, you're going to be a writer someday, you're going to go to state, you're going to be in that program. And even when I considered others and I wanted to rebel against that, I still kept coming back to this one. And I don't really know why, other than it felt destined. And in a certain way it was, because I found so many soulmates in this program. A family that in a way I will always be tethered to. And there's not much else I can say to articulate that better. So to get straight to it, I'd like to say thank you. Just a general thank you to the universe. A thank you to my committee, Professor Benita Blackburn for being my chair, Professors Roger R. and Bryn Sato for being on my committee, for their guidance, their patience, pushing me. I'd like to thank the rest of the MFA faculty, including Stephen, and a special thanks to Jefferson and Ron for extra support and for always being available. And I'd like to thank my cohort for providing feedback on this manuscript. You've all been very kind and enthusiastic. even when I have been confusing. And so thank you for your patience and your kindness. A special thanks to Sydney for sharing this space with me, for saving my ass so many times over the last 3 years. She's been great. There's been a sisterhood in a certain way, and it feels very fitting to be doing this together. So thank you so much, Sydney. Um, Thank you to my friends and family who have been amazing and have been great cheerleaders throughout all of this, and have put up with me for my whole life when I have been too odd to understand, and for loving me regardless. Um, and finally, I'd like to give a simple thank you to Fresno. I was born in Fresno, but I left very young, and was raised in the Coachella Valley. And I kept coming back to Fresno, and especially for school, just entering adulthood. I kept coming back because there is something about the people in Fresno, the culture, the land, and the ancestry that connects Fresno to me and me to Fresno. So thank you to Simply Fresno, and thank you to my soul family and my spiritual team for all of the inspiration and the guidance. I'm gonna go ahead and read a short story called The Greatest Storyteller. It was published originally in the Salmon Quinn Review in 2019, so thank you to SJR for that as well. And it is from my thesis, Red and the Roots. So, The Great Storyteller. My mother is a storyteller, the great storyteller. She sits with a glass of wine, red as blood, fragile as a baby's bone. She tucks me in, pressing the quilts all around, and closes the door. She sits next to my bed on the floor and tells me everything. She tells me of fairies in the green lands of the world, the ghosts of human sacrifices roaming the deserts, and angels who come down into the world. Her mother was an angel, she says. An angel who came down to take care of evil men, feeding them hot meals of beans and rice, and healing their sickened kids. My mother sips and presses a cold hand against my head, her tall and thin body relaxed against the carpet like a child. She never uses a book. She doesn't need a page. It all trickles out from her head, from the deep layers of her memory. She tells new stories without stopping to remember, and old stories without mixing up the details. She smiles a graceful smile when my eyes widen. She smooths my hair when I gasp. She laughs a light laugh when I ask, "Really?" And she says, "Of course." As my chest grows, causing little pains under the flesh, she says that women grow breasts to hold the secrets of the world men aren't supposed to know. I ask why they aren't supposed to know, and she says that they couldn't understand. We hold them there and give them to our children when they're born, through the mouth like the gods gave breath. And when they grow up, they forget. I don't know if I believe this story, since I've seen many men with breasts as big or bigger than my mother's. But I know she's trying to stop my crying, so I nod and wear the training bras anyway. However, the cotton of them is so itchy, like a constricting wet leaf over my skin. I ask if I can go without it, if the secrets will stay in place or not. She says, "Of course." I am ashamed of the hair that sprouts suddenly, almost overnight. It's on my arms, on my toes, over my nose, and even on the little bulb between my legs. I hear the other girls in the locker rooms talking of pink razors and soap. Some use lotion, others use only water. Their mothers don't allow it, and their fathers don't notice a difference. But they do it anyway. In the secret of showers and baths, with the door closed and humming half-learned songs I try it one day, slowly and tentatively, certain not to make a nick over the little bulb between my legs. It's distorted with half hair and half flesh, and I make it young again. The next day it burns. Watching in the mirror for the slightest cut, I only see red and fleshy bumps. I cave. I go to my mother and she kneels before me with my white underwear down and makes the noise of a saddened heart. Only models and actresses need to do that. Goddesses, not girls like us. A tear falls from my cheek, and I repeat the stories of the girls in the locker room, and she snorts a half laugh. There was a woman who did this and she was young, she says. With every day, she scraped the hair away. The next morning, it came back longer and wilder than before. Eventually, she scraped with fury, trying to reverse what she had done, to no avail. One day, old and childless as no man wanted her for how she looked, she traded the razor for a kitchen blade and cut the whole mound off, skinning it from her body once and for all. Did she die? I ask. No, she says, looking at my inflamed flesh. She lived the rest of her days like that. My mother pecked a little kiss on the reddened bulge, like she did when I scraped or bruised my skin as a child, and sighed a frown. No more, she tells me, and it'll heal in no time. I take a boy inside of me for the first time. It doesn't hurt, like my teachers and classmates say it will. It's thrilling. I want more. My mother tells me to be careful. I tell her I am, but she grabs my hand and says again with earnest, be careful. One girl fell in love with a beautiful stranger at a ball one night. She took him home, took him to bed, and he was a great lover, my mother says. She's nonchalant. The girl's family loved him. They thought he was a brilliant man, and one day, while playing cards in the game room by the fireplace at night, this girl dropped a card. As she went to pick it up from the stone floor, she saw there were no legs from her lover, only hooves and fur. When she screamed and threw the table, her lover transformed. Turned out he was the devil, and she gave birth to his twisted spawn 9 months later, dying in blood. I nod as my mother finishes and watch her take a sip of wine. Can I have a taste? I ask. I don't know what else to say. I don't think she'll actually let me, but she looks at me with great thoughtfulness before sliding the glass into my hand. My wedding day is in the summer, and she pushes a shot of whiskey into my palm now. For the nerves, she says, and I drink as directed. She kneels at my feet with my heels in wrinkled hands. Her wrists are frail and thin, but her grasp is strong. I worry she won't be able to stand, but she waves me off. She tells me about the woman who married at a sea cliff. The gods opened the skies and floated down to attend. Her husband could have been any man, she says, a fisherman or a merchant or a killer or a king. Who he was isn't important to the story. The sky and the cliff and the bride are important. And she wore bright colored shells on her head. I do not wear shells, but a thin silver crown. My mother's idea. I may not be a princess in this world, but I am a princess of another, in a different realm, she says. I don't know if I believe this one either, but I smile anyway. And I walk down the aisle, envisioning a bride with seashells, the golden gods, and the sky opened in light above them all. Was she a princess? I ask my mother when I hand her my flowers before the dance. This bride with the seashells in her hair? And she smiles. Of course she was. Of course she was. My mother is dying. I am by her hospital bed. I tell her the story of her mother, the angel who came down onto earth to take care of the evil and the sick, and to heal with hot plates of rice and beans. My mother smiles and tells me to have wine at the funeral. I tell her, of course I will. Red as blood. My large belly from my child takes up the space between us. She will be a princess, I tell her. Not of this world, but from another. I can feel it. I can feel her little crown poking into my ribs. It's a golden crown, I say, trying to make her smile. But she shakes her head. No, my mother says. She will be an angel, brought down to take care of the evil and the sick. Don't you agree? She asks before she leaves. Of course, I say, and I hold her tiny hands, smooth skin against cold skin now. She will be an angel, and a princess, and a fairy, and a witch, a lover, and a goddess, and a killer, and a queen. Thank you.